has ever done.
And this monster starts running right at me.
Annihilated by nuclear bombs.
Beast is not dead. I put 4 bullets into him.
Oh, you're crazy.
But I saw that monster too. All I want is for someone to believe me.
Contaminated.
Face. Horrible. Looked like it would scare you to death.
All right, let's get to work.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. There are stories whispered in the dark about creatures that knock when they shouldn't, shadows that move when nothing else does, and eyes that see right through you. Welcome to Beyond the Shadows, the podcast that drags the hidden, the haunted, and the horrifying into the light. I'm Victus, and I'm your intrepid paranormal investigator. Each week we unravel the world's most chilling mysteries and explore the spaces where fear lives just beneath the surface. So light a candle, check your locks, and lean in close. Because tonight we're diving into the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Yes. That actually seemed like it was really loud. I'm sorry if it was. Any hoots. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful, wonderful weekend. Happy Sunday to everyone. We're here for another one, yet another. I hope everyone's doing well. Changed up a few little things. We're working on some production value increases, so bear with me a little bit. We're going to make this as good as possible. We're going to do our very best to make this podcast shine. And working on some sound, some music, working on some imagery. If you notice a little bit of change on the video tonight, it's because we have colored lights now. I can change this to any color I'd like. Thank you very much. Red is the color tonight. We almost went with green, so it is what it is, man. So, first and foremost, thank you to everybody who's been watching the live on YouTube. Working real hard to bring good quality content to the channel. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to try to start leaving the channel running live all week long. And all we're doing is replaying all of the episodes from season 1 and season 2, nonstop, back to back, in a random order. So those of you who don't always get to watch, it's, you can pull up your favorite episodes on youtube.com. Let's see, what is, I'm sure, there's a link somewhere down below. Here, if you're watching on Twitch right now live, there's a link down below that'll tell you or give you a link straight to the YouTube channel. But we are at Beyond Shadows Podcast on YouTube. Let me pull up the actual channel. I want to see it now. It's shame on me for not knowing. Yes, at Beyond
Evening,
Shadows
fella.
Podcast.
We'll be with ya shortly, just sorting some stuff.
Do your thing, bud. I'll be here. We're just getting started, so yeah, we've been really stepping up the quantity of video on YouTube. So if you really like what you got going on over here, go and check out the YouTube channel. We have 174 videos on YouTube now. It's been a busy weekend for me. But that is youtube.com/@ Beyond Shadows Podcast. Check it out, everybody. The links are everywhere. You can find us. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to, this is either Emily or Emile. I'm going to say Emily. Emily Briere. Thank you for your subscribing to the YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Anybody whose account is not set to private, I will give you a shout out if you subscribe to the channel. I only get notifications for people that subscribe if their profiles are not set to private. But she's the only one who, she, they, them, I'm not sure what the pronouns are, sorry. She's the only one who I've got a notification for subscribing. But we are up 8 subscriptions on YouTube. We're doing really good. We're about to hit the 200 mark. But yeah, we're swinging away. Posted some reels this week from the Black Eyed Children episode. That's all on YouTube. I'm gonna do my best to get those posted onto the other socials for now. But we'll do what we can. I'm a one-man show, and I'm doing what I can when I can. So bear with me. So no emails from anybody tonight, which is good and bad. I guess no news is good news, right? So, A and Paul are doing good. I got word from them this week that they're doing all right. That the torture that they've been inflicted upon in that bunker underneath Area 51 has ceased, and it appears they're getting close to an agreement upon release from Area 51. So as soon as they're released from Area 51, we'll see them back here in the show. But until then, you're stuck with me. Get used to it. You're stuck with me. We'll see how this new format stuff plays out with the multiple hosts on the show. But I'm hoping, and it looks good at my end, I'm hoping that the show looks good. I've increased the video quality, paid for some extra bandwidth for Twitch, and we should be running like 1440 right now. So pretty good resolution. I'm hoping it looks good. I've worked really, really hard on this weekend. So we are covering the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. I will say we do have audio from the actual exorcism this week. It's a little graphic. I will read some of it. We'll listen to the actual audio, and we'll go through and read some of the subtitles. I'll bring it up on the screen so we can see what's going on. But it is graphic, and be prepared, because it is not for the faint of heart. So we got some graphics. We got some pictures of the actual Anneliese Michel during the exorcism and before the possession. So I will say there's a lot of foreign names in this episode this week. Anneliese Michel was from Germany, so we're dealing with a lot of German names, German words. You will see when we get into the actual live recording how German everything really is, because this is the case that they made into the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. One of my first movies that really caught my attention when it came to possession and exorcism. What was her name? Jennifer Carpenter? Jennifer Carpenter, wasn't it? I think that was her name. She played Emily Rose. Phenomenal actress. She's got that stretchy face that just contorts really well. But awesome movie. But this is the case that inspired that movie. There is some deviations from, the story, the actual story, and the Hollywoodization of what happened. You will see when we get into it just how different everything was. But I was a big fan of the actual movie, so we'll roll with the punches a little bit. We'll see what's going on. But tonight we are covering the possession of Anneliese Michel. And, everything's looking good. Our frame rate is keeping consistent. This is why I ramble a little bit at the beginning of the episode. I'm waiting to make sure that the frame rate is steady, because I am destroying my bandwidth here at home. I have so many screens running. I'm probably going to post something here on Instagram in the next couple of days of the new setup I've got. And I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens, 3 computers, 1 tablet, 1 microphone, 1 mixer, 3 mice, and so many cables it looks like spaghetti on my desk. So, I like to share the behind the scenes stuff, because a lot of people don't see what happens or what it looks like in a podcaster's space. It's not all glitz and glam and soundproof booths. In my case, I'm sitting in my office in the corner, and sometimes it's not so pretty. It can get a little messy in here, but I do what I can. So, I'm hoping to be a little more engaging with the sounds tonight. bought a special stand just for the soundboard tablet, and I'm really, really hoping we can get a little bit better action out of it. So, without further ado, we're going to tie off into this, but there's one thing we always do at the beginning of each episode before we get started. What shirt are you wearing today? I need like a dancing alien for that segment. That's the plan. I want to get like a dancing alien, or like breakdancing Bigfoot, or like sexy dancing Bigfoot, and have that pop up when we play that little jingle. Sorry if that was really loud. It did seem a little loud in OBS. But hey, what shirt are we wearing today? Check it out. No sign of intelligent life anywhere. This is my my passive aggressive shirt. So, no sign of intelligent life anywhere. So, welcome in everybody. Episode 223, season 2, episode 23 of Beyond the Shadows podcast. Let's get into the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wacky. We're going to hear some crazy audio. I have the audio of the Exorcism from 1952, and it is bizarre. So, let's see. We don't want boat sounds this week. Let's do this one. Yeah. I'm gonna watch the audio levels. I think we're okay on this one though. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21st of 1952 in the small village of Liebelfling? How is there an L next to an F? Liebelfling? In the lower Bavarian region of what was then West Germany. It was a time and place marked by tradition, conservative, rural, and deeply religious. West Germany in the post-war years was still rebuilding, and the Catholic Church remained a dominant force in everyday life, especially in the Bavarian countryside. Anneliese's parents, Joseph and Anna Michel, were staunch Catholics. Joseph worked as a supervisor at a sawmill, and Anna was a homemaker. Their faith wasn't just private, it was rigid, fervent, and central to their identity. Anna, in particular, was devout to a level that some would later describe as fanatical. Before marrying Joseph, she had spent time in a convent and seriously considered taking religious vows. Her decision to start a family did not reduce her intensity. She would raise her daughters with strict Catholic doctrine and an uncompromising belief in sin, punishment, and redemption. Anneliese was the second of 4 daughters, and from an early age she stood out. She was intelligent, obedient, and eager to please. Her teachers often described her as academically gifted, polite, and introspective. She played the piano, participated in school events, and most notably attended daily mass without fail. As she got older, she began voluntarily praying the rosary multiple times a day and frequently engaged in acts of penance. Pretty devout, no matter how you cut that. Let's see. I think I have a picture of her before the poop hit the fan. Yeah, here we go. Let me switch scenes here. Oh, we have a new transition scene. Yeah, our new transition, stinger transition. So here we go. Check out this transition. Oh, I love it. It took me those like 2 hours of work for that little bitty animation. There you go. One more time. Whoa. Whoa. I'm very proud of that transition. Very proud of it. I love it. So this here's Anneliese Michel. Picture taken back in 1952. But beneath her religious devotion was something else, something harder to define. Even before her medical symptoms began, friends recalled Anneliese as being unusually preoccupied with guilt. She reported being worried constantly about the state of her soul, about whether her thoughts were pure enough, her prayers sincere enough. Her spiritual intensity went beyond youthful faith and engaged in something darker, an almost compulsive obsession with worthiness and damnation. Wait, how old is she at this time? She was young. It doesn't give an exact age at this part. But in 1968, at the age of 16, Anneliese had her first seizure. So before the age of 16, she was already so devoutly Catholic that she is being labeled as, quote, almost compulsive obsession with worthiness and damnation. I did not think about those things when I was 15. I know that for a fact. I was out running the roads when I was 15, getting in all sorts of problems. I'm gonna turn that sound down just a tiny bit. It might be a little too loud. We'll deal with it. But yeah, 15 years old, I don't think you would ever describe me as obsessive about worthiness and damnation to any degree. That's a pretty extreme title for a 15-year-old, if you ask me. But it was a different time back then. It was 1950s. Or I guess this was the mid to late 1960s when she was considered obsessive. So at the age of 16, she had her first seizure. It struck suddenly and violently. She was at school when her body seized up, her muscles spasmed, and she collapsed unconscious. In the aftermath, doctors at the neurological clinic of Wurzburg diagnosed her with a temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that affects the region of the brain responsible for memory, emotion, and sensory perception. Temporal lobe epilepsy can be unpredictable. While some experience purely physical seizures, others report complex systems such as auditory hallucinations, visual disturbances, intense feelings of deja vu, or even a sense of a presence nearby. Heavy air quotes on presence. It has also been closely associated with hyperreligiosity. Wow, I got that one right in the first time. A phenomenon in which a patient develops obsessive religious thoughts, visions, and rituals. So we're already seeing some red flags here. Sorry, Anneliese, but it's not looking good for you. And when we're talking about, whether this is real or not, these are red flags. She's got a medical condition that runs hand in hand, hyper-religiosity. I've never even heard of that before doing research for this. It's a little strange, but hey, I get it. It's if you ask me, I feel like maybe the hyper-religiosity was maybe tacked on because, after talking with the psychiatrist a little bit, they realized that she was fervent in her beliefs. I don't know. It seems like an easy diagnosis, honestly. I wonder if this is a standard precursor for possession, because I didn't get too much in the way of research about hyper-religiosity, but it seems awfully convenient that she has seizures, but then also has hyper-religiosity tacked on to, you know what I mean? It's awfully convenient. So for a girl like Anneliese, already immersed in a culture of sin, sacrifice, and salvation, the diagnosis would mark the beginning of a harrowing transformation. She would be prescribed Dilantin, a powerful anticonvulsant, but over the next year, her condition failed to improve. On the contrary, she began to fall into long bouts of depression and social withdrawal. She told her family that she heard voices, not whispers, but commands. Voices that told her that she was damned, that she would, quote, rot in hell, and that no amount of prayer could save her. So I'm gonna call this another red flag here. It seems like we're dealing with some type of now I'm no psychiatrist, but it feels like there's some kind of psychopathy or delusions, something that ties into psychologically ties in that maybe it's looking like to me so far that her quote obsessive religiosity plus the seizures plus this medication might be amplifying her psychological problems. It feels more psychological than anything right now. If I remember my research correctly, I did do a little bit of research into this a couple years ago, and there were ties to Dilantin that caused psychosis to amplify. I could be wrong. It's been a number of years since I've done like thorough research into medications. I am not a medication person. I don't take medications. I took some years ago for my bipolar disorder, but I managed to get off of it. That shit made me feel like a zombie. I hated it. So I could only imagine in the 1960s. Yeah, it's because it says that she fell into long bouts of depression and social withdrawal. So it sounds like the Dilantin was hurting her psychologically, but helping her physically. So in 1970, after experiencing another major seizure, Anneliese was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. She spent months under observation. Doctors added new medications, Tegretol, Oelept, which were both meant to treat her epilepsy and growing signs of psychosis. But no matter the adjustments, her symptoms persisted. Her hallucinations became more intense and specific. She claimed to see, quote, devil faces staring at her, sometimes hovering above her bed, other times emerging from the walls. She described grotesque figures with glowing eyes and elongated limbs. More disturbingly, she began exhibiting extreme aversion to religious symbols, an early hallmark, according to the church doctrine, of a demonic influence. So, I'm gonna read this next little bit here, and I'm gonna tell you my 2 cents on this part. What we're getting at so far. Anneliese could no longer enter a church. She physically recoiled from crucifixes. Her mother.
Like a lot of this case is going to be the age-old dance between madness and the occult. Is it just illness, or does it open a door?
Right. And I'm gonna get into that. Let me read this little bit here. She could no longer enter a church. She physically recoiled from crucifixes. Her mother recounted a story in which Anneliese attempted to accompany the family to Mass, but doubled over in pain at the church entrance, unable to cross the threshold. She reportedly told her mother, quote, "It burns. I can't go in. I'm not worthy." End quote. So, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents out there from what I'm hearing so far. This sounds to me like there is a psychological issue here, and the medication isn't working, because, in my opinion, medication just doesn't work well. Medication isn't working. So let's go back a little bit. So we know that she was obsessive about her religion, but then she had personal doubts before all of this started of whether or not she was, quote, worthy enough, or whether her soul was damned, or what have you. So we're setting a foundation for importance on religious acceptance. And I feel like she may have slipped into some type of psychosis here. And, back when my bipolar disorder was at its worst, it would take the things I was most anxious about and it would amplify it. Uh, like I always had uh, these lingering fears, like somebody was going to break in, or somebody was sneaking around trying to to get me, or not like kill me or anything, but like they were always following me or watching me. And on my bipolar medication, it amplified. It kept my mood swings, but I feel like there may have been a bit of psychosis involved because it just made it worse. Uh, it took this lingering fear of me looking out the window every time I heard a little noise to sitting in a corner with the doors locked and a 2x4 screwed over the door because I was scared someone was going to get in. It got way worse for no reason. I will. This place that I lived at when I was on this medication, horrible apartment complex, horrible. There was this podcast I used to listen to, and I actually submitted this story. Oh, thank you for the follow. Wow, fantastic. Again, I didn't get the sounds. I saw the notification. I didn't hear it though. What the nuts? I've really got to get this stuff figured out. Thanks for the follow. I couldn't even read who it was. By the time it came up, it'll pop up here. Kozad3217, thanks for the follow. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the show. This is Beyond the Shadows podcast. We talk about the spooky, the eerie, and the sometimes unexplained. But we look at it through a realistic lens, and we try to figure out what's going on. Tonight we are talking about the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel, but I do have a small personal story to share, and this is crazy. So this podcast I used to listen to, people would send in their stories, and they would read their stories, and they were usually like crazy horror stories about things that happened to them. And this happened to me at this apartment complex when my bipolar disorder was at its worst. And oh geez, I about fell over dead. But this so I kept hearing something outside. I didn't know what it was. Oh, but hold on, before I get to the reason I brought up that other podcast was I sent this story into that podcast and they said it was too crazy. There's no way it could be real. And I was like, fuck you guys. This really happened to me. Whatever. So anyway, I'm sitting in my apartment and I was playing some Call of Duty or something. And I kept hearing something outside, and it sounded like somebody trying to start a weed eater, right? So at apartments, you've got people that come in and do the landscaping. It's a normal thing. So usually it's like a big company. They'll come in, everybody runs around, does their thing, and then they're gone. Well, this sound was it sounded like somebody tried to start a weed eater over and over again for like 15 minutes. Couldn't get it started. And my paranoia kicked in. And I happened to look out the window. And this lady, she looked like Charlize Theron. I think it was Charlize Theron from that movie Monster. Hold on, let me find it. Let me pull it up. What was that? Who was that she played? Eileen Wuornos? Was that it? Was that Charlize Theron? It was Charlize Theron. Yeah. I'm trying to pull up the images of the movie Monster, and it's pulling up images of the energy drink. Check this. So, yeah, this lady looked like this. This is what she looked like. She just had a crazy face, right? This was her face, like kind of shitty blonde hair. She has blonde eyebrows here, but the lady in my parking lot, I could not tell that she had eyebrows. She had this face. That's why it looked like Like, I was like, it looks like Eileen Wuornos, right? But she was in prison. I think they put her to death by then. I don't know this whole story. But, so I hear this brr, brr, brr. I look down there. This lady is at her tailgate of an old beat-up truck. She's got the tailgate down. And she's got a chainsaw sitting on the tailgate. She's trying to rip this chainsaw to get it started. Brum, brum, brum. And then finally, brum, she gets it started. She's like, yeah, you see her pumping it like this. And she's psyching herself up. She turns around, starts walking straight towards my apartment complex, revving the motor with this chainsaw. She gets halfway across the parking lot, and the chainsaw died. And I could hear her cussing, screaming. She throws the chainsaw down, gets in her truck, and leaves. It happened. I saw it happen. Just saying. So this is what I was getting at, is medication does not always help. Sometimes it hurts, and I think in this circumstance, it hurt Anneliese Michel. I mean, this was the 60s. It was the mid 60s, so you're not going to see a lot of like antipsychotic medication that's really doing its job. But it really feels like there was some type of psychosis involved, and there was like a rooted problem in her brain about being worthy enough, and the wrong medication started to make these manifestations happen. That's my opinion so far. We're going to keep going. We'll see what else it says. So according to those close to her, Anneliese's physical health began to deteriorate as well. She lost weight, her eyes became sunken, her skin pale, her muscles atrophied, but no medical condition explained it fully. At home, her behavior became violent and unpredictable. She would thrash, scream, and speak in languages her family claimed she'd never studied. Latin, for example, and occasionally phrases that resembled ancient Hebrew or Aramaic. So now we're starting to check boxes of demonic possession. One of the big ones is knowledge of things unknown. So like a language that somebody doesn't study. However, I will say that there are a lot of old languages like Latin that do directly translate to German, so it would be easy for somebody who knows German to learn, say, Latin or Aramaic, because it's an old language and they derive from each other. So her classmates noticed that she started to grow isolated, and one girl from her school later told a reporter, quote, "She looked like something was inside her. She did not look like herself anymore, and I was scared of her," end quote. Despite this, Anneliese tried to return to some semblance of a normal life. She enrolled at University of Würzburg in 1973 to study education and theology. She barely made it through her first term. Her mental and physical state collapsed completely. I will say, for the record, this was a religious school. It's awfully convenient that she couldn't enter a church, but she could enter a religious school, which is practically a school inside a church. Just saying. So at this point, her family began to look beyond medical answers. They believed they were not witnessing a mental illness, but a spiritual crisis. A possession. The church, however, did not immediately agree. For an exorcism to be officially sanctioned by the Catholic Church, a very specific set of conditions must be met. The individual must show signs of a genuine possession, and all medical explanations must be ruled out. This is underlined twice in the script here. They are very, very strict about this rule. Anneliese had a long documented history of epilepsy, depression, and psychosis, and the church became reluctant. But not everyone in the clergy was dismissive. So this is, see what you want about the Catholic Church. They are very thorough about exorcisms, especially when it comes to the younger ones, because it can get this case is a hallmark in why they are so particular about who they do exorcisms on, because it can end badly for a lot of people. So in 1973, the family was introduced to Father Ernest Alt, a young and somewhat unorthodox priest who took a personal interest in the case. He met with Anneliese several times and began keeping detailed notes. Alt believed her symptoms could not be explained by medical science alone. He wrote to the Bishop of Würzburg, Josef Stangl, asking for permission to perform an exorcism. In one letter he wrote, quote, "The girl is suffering beyond what medicine can explain. She does not respond to drugs. She reacts violently to holy objects. She tells me demons speak through her, and I believe she is truly possessed." End quote. You know, that's that's powerful words. So I'm going to say a lot of people think that this is not a genuine case of demonic possession. However, when you have the Catholic Church and Catholic priests looking at an individual, and if this 16, so this was 73, so she would be in her 20s by then. So if this 20-something girl can pull one over on people from the Catholic Church, I think that would be really, really hard to do, right? It doesn't seem like it would be easy, is what I'm getting at. So I think at this point it's hard to say whether or not she was faking it. I don't know. Well, I don't want to jump the gun yet. We'll get into this a little bit more. The bishop remained cautious, and for over a year he denied the request. During this time, Anneliese's condition grew worse. She began engaging in self-harming behaviors, such as biting herself, punching walls, and slamming her head into the floor. She ripped the skin from her arms and legs with her fingernails. She drank her own urine, and she screamed for hours at a time. And then in 1975, in September, after ongoing appeals and detailed assessment from Father Alt, the bishop finally relented. He authorized the Ritual Romanum, the traditional Roman rite of exorcism, to be performed. Two priests were assigned, Father Alt, who had been advocating for her, and Father Arnold Renz, a more experienced cleric known for his composure and knowledge of demonology. How much of a badass do you gotta be to be known as the guy who knows about demonology? Hashtag goals, right? Kind of impressive. Kind of impressive. The ritual began in Anneliese's family home in Klingenberg, a small town where the Michel family had moved in 1973. And over the next 10 months, Anneliese would undergo 67 exorcism sessions, some lasting over 4 hours. And by this point, Anneliese's physical state was deteriorating rapidly. She had stopped eating, claiming that the demons would not let her. She would no longer attend school, and her body was covered in bruises, scratches, and scars. Her voice, captured on audio, which we'll listen to here in a little bit, changed dramatically, shifting between growls, screams, and chilling utterances spoken in guttural tones. The voices claimed to be specific demons and historical figures. On tape, they identified themselves as Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Nero, and even Adolf Hitler. Father Renz later said, quote, "She would change personalities in a moment. She became entirely different. Her face, her posture, her strength. There were times when it took 3 grown men to hold her down. End quote. So, I don't know that a 20-something-year-old girl who's thin and emaciated would need 3 grown men to hold her down. Which comes to another box that we're going to check for demonic possession. And that is unnatural strength. It's, I'm not going to show you yet, but I have pictures of her when she was being exorcised. And I mean, they say she's emaciated, but it's really hard to tell. I wouldn't call her like super skinny or anything, but we'll pull up these pictures here in a little bit when we get a little more into the story. So by the end of 1975, the Michel household had become something out of a medieval horror. Anneliese was no longer the shy, intelligent girl from Liebfling. She was gaunt, bruised, starving, and in constant agony. Her voice, once soft and reverent, became a guttural, unrecognizable rasp. Her family remained convinced that they were fighting for her soul, and the church had sanctioned it. The police believed in it, or the police? the priests believed in it. But the question hung over everything. Was she truly possessed, or was she suffering from something more tragic and human? Was this a case of faith gone too far, or a genuine battle between light and darkness? So next up, we're gonna go over what really happened during these 67 exorcism sessions. We're gonna break down the timeline, share some portions of the real audio recordings, and examine claims made by priests and the voices they believed were speaking through Anneliese Michel. So, oh, what is this? Yeah, sorry. I edited the wrong thing there. So now we're looking at the start of the exorcisms. This is when things start to get really bad. From this point forward, we need to. I think I'm going to keep my opinions about what's happening to myself until we reach the end, because this is the part that's important. It's the most important part, because ultimately we do deal with a death, and this is the evidence that was brought forward during trials to see if anybody should or would be held responsible for her demise. There is some graphic language and descriptions coming up. It's a little crazy. So for those of you listening later, not live, you might not want to listen to this one tonight, because it gets a little crazy. It's violent, it's grotesque, it's full of profanity, and if you're one of those that don't care for this kind of thing, this might not be the episode for you. So fair warning, I'm sorry, but I will give a little bit of warning here. So let me get a couple more sips of liquid courage here. Do want to look at one little thing right quick before I get into this. Just gonna right quick look up the person who subscribed earlier. Make sure they're a real person. This is just something I do to keep the integrity of the podcast. Oh yeah. Cool. They look like a real person. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the follow. You're great. You are great. So, let's get into the exorcism. We got some new Voodoo Ranger tonight. I'm excited. Oop, I already know that one. Get a 12-pack of different flavors. I didn't know they sold 12 packs of different flavors. I'm a total nerd for this stuff. Ooh. Mango IPA. Oh, there you go. 1985 Mango IPA. I don't know what makes it 1985, but we're going to find out. Ooh, it smells delightful. This video is not sponsored by Voodoo Ranger, but if you do want to sponsor us, Voodoo Ranger, I'd be glad to sit down and do talks with you. That's all I drink while we're doing this podcast. So, the first official exorcism took place on September 24th of 1975. Wow, that was 10, 11 years and 1 day before my birthday. Wow. In the family home in Klingenberg, a quiet village nestled among the Bavarian countryside. It was performed under strict guidelines of the Ritual Romanum, the traditional Roman Catholic rites of exorcism first codified in 1614. The priest involved, as stated earlier, are Father Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz, and were granted full authority by Bishop Joseph Stangl, who approved the rite after deeming the case severe enough to merit intervention. The sessions were not casual rituals. They were lengthy, grueling, and emotionally wrenching, and they were recorded. Over the next 10 months, 67 sessions were performed, many of them lasting between 4 and 6 hours. The priest would pray, read scripture, chant Latin invocations, and sprinkle holy water. Anneliese, often restrained by family members, would scream and thrash, convulse, and speak in voices that, according to those present, were not her own. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case in the set of audio recordings, which we're going to listen to here in a little bit, so stay tuned, made during the exorcisms, these tapes, which are still available to the public today, which, like I said, we're going to listen to them, offer chilling evidence of what took place inside that house. On them, Anneliese can be heard growling, snarling, laughing maniacally, and speaking in multiple distinct voices. The voices claim to be a collective of demons and damned souls. Among them, Lucifer, the primary voice, cold, proud, disdainful of prayer; Judas Iscariot, angry and self-loathing, constantly invoking betrayal; Nero, the Roman emperor, blaming Christians for his damnation; Cain, the biblical brother killer, hissing and mocking; Adolf Hitler, whose voice was described as high-pitched and mocking; and Fleischmann, a disgraced 16th century Frankish priest who had been excommunicated. These entities often argued amongst themselves. On tape, you can hear multiple voices overlapping, sometimes mocking the priest, sometimes arguing over who had more control of Anneliese's body. One particularly disturbing session records a conversation between Hitler and Lucifer's personas, in which Lucifer calls Hitler a, quote, fool who still talks too much. The voice claiming to be Lucifer spoke with disturbing calm and arrogance. He said things like, quote, I am the ruler of this world. She is ours. You can do nothing. This bitch prays too much. The tone, pacing, and phrasing of these voices seemed to shift depending on the demon. Whether this was a product of psychiatric disassociation or something darker remains a question hotly debated to this day. So, again, we're dealing with something that could be linked to psychosis, multiple personalities. So I can see how Lucifer, Judas, Cain, easily identifiable by this girl. she's, she probably knew the Bible front and back, so we can easily say that she knew these names and knew what they were about. Adolf Hitler, she was in the generation where she was still kind of influenced by what happened during the Holocaust. So she was a teenager in the 50s, so she was very little. So she did have some exposure from World War II. Nero, the Roman emperor that blamed Christians for his damnation, it's a little bit of an abstract one, I'm going to say. She could have easily learned about Nero in school because there is a religious undertone to what happened with Nero. But Fleischmann, the disgraced 16th century Frankish priest who had been excommunicated seems a little abstract. It really seems like that's a really, really obscure thing to know about. I don't think it's in this research, but the story goes that she started talking in the voice of Fleischmann and describing who he was, what she had done, or what he had done to be excommunicated. And at the time, the two priests that were performing the exorcism did not know who he was. So it's like, what year was he excommunicated? 16th century. So we're talking 1500s. A super obscure piece of knowledge. I don't see somebody knowing who Fleischmann was just by doing research. The priests in between sessions ended up going back to the Catholic Church in the Vatican and brought up the name Father Fleischmann, and only after going into the archives were they able to find his name and find out who he was. They did not even know he existed until going down to the archives, which is not an easy thing to do in the Vatican. It's wild to me that Catholic priests didn't know who he was, but this 20-something-year-old girl did. It seems this is one of those things that, how did she come across this information? We're talking again about the one of the signs of demonic possession is knowledge of things unknown, and this is a hallmark sign of that. How did she know about this 1500s priest that was excommunicated? It's a little wild. So, I want to play some of this audio. Oh, just a second. I need to pull it up on this other computer. Let me get the script back to where it was so I don't lose my spot. Oh, so much light in my face.
The following audio is comprised of the real, unedited...
Okay, hold on. Not that one. All right. So we have 8 10-minute audio clips. I'm just going to use this as like a reference point so you can hear some of the voices she makes. Let's just hit audio tape number 6. We're going to mute that ad right quick.
Wait.
Okay, just making sure you had audio for that. All right. this is, I'm going to go ahead and go full screen on this so you can see what's going on. This is going to be a little difficult to do if you're just listening, friends. So this is this has a split. So this is the video here. I'm going to move my my camera here. So you can see what's going on. So the top half of this is in the top half of the subtitles is in German, and the bottom half is going to be in English. Read along as best you can if you're watching. But when we hear some more unbelievable ththings, I will go through and pause and reread some of these, or I'll try my best to read along with these. And if the audio sucks, let me know. We will do what we can to play this audio as clearly as we can. Let me right quick. Let me say that this is posted by Mark Kowalski on YouTube. This is his playlist, and he put this stuff together. Thank you to him. I didn't ask for permission, and I'm sorry if I get dinged for this, but this is a phenomenal piece of information, and I want to share it with everybody. So let's move forward with this. I'm going to be watching this audio over here for the first little bit.
So blöd. Ja, nie meine, wenn sie den Raum.
Talarerzieherin, Ordensgehörig, Priesterkleid,
Ja. Es dauert nämlich nicht mehr lang.
It won't be long. The punishment will come. The judge punished. It won't be long.
Nicht mehr lang.
nach der Öffentlichkeit.
Nee. Ja.
You dirty pig, you damn, I will abuse you so that you won't know where is the top and where is the bottom. He says, I am under the protection of the holiest Virgin. The holiest Virgin Mary won't allow you for this. I am under her protection. I am under her protection. So this is the priest talking here.
Ich spring noch so viel durcheinander und ausstrahle draus, dass es nicht mehr halten können.
She says, I will blow many things, making so much confusion and arguments you won't bear it.
Du das Ding weg. Den hat's nie gegeben.
Says, take away this thing. This one was never that one there. Yes, although he was here already.
Ja, doch, den hat's gegeben.
Yes, he was here already? He says, yes.
Im Namen der allerseligsten Jungfrau Maria, im Namen der aller... Das Weihwasser. Das Weihwasser.
Okay, so at that point, it looks like he's bringing out holy water. And she said, the shitty water? He says, the holy water. And she said, the shitty water.
Das Weihwasser. Das gesegnete Wasser. Darum fährst du nicht aus.
Weil mir so gut fällt bei dir.
Allerselig die Jungfrau wird dir. Allerselig die Jungfrau wird dir befehlen.
Nee, bei der fällt das überhaupt nicht.
Allerselig die Jungfrau soll dir befehlen, die volle Wahrheit zu sagen.
Okay, he's throwing prayers at her at this point,
Der dreifaltige Gott befehle dir, die volle Wahrheit zu sagen.
asking why the demons won't leave.
Warum zögerst du auszufahren?
Weil ich noch nichts
Weil du noch mehr zu sagen hast. Sag die Wahrheit. Ja, das ist die Jungfrau, möge dich zwingen, die Wahrheit zu sagen.
All right, let's skip it. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's see if we can find some. See if we can find some when she gets worked up.
Des dreifaltigen Gottes, die volle Wahrheit. Ich hatte mit diesen Änderungen der Gebete zufrieden.
Die neuen Reformen, die wollen uns sehr gut.
Mit meinem Jahrzehnt.
Oder wisst ihr, was so brennt in der Laune? Oh, das ist
Wo brennt? Was brennt? Sag die Wahrheit. Im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes. Sag die Wahrheit. Was brennt darin?
My throat hurts just listening.
Right?
Sag die Wahrheit. Sag die ganze
Yeah, I have a really hard time believing that a 20-something-year-old girl continually did this for hours and hours, for days and days and days, without losing her voice. But so this is session number 8, or no, session number 6. Let's go towards the end. Let's see if the voice changes a little bit.
Harbor Freight.
Oh, ads. We love ads. Yeah, I can't afford for YouTube without ads, so.
von der. Ja. Nein, von mir.
Yeah, so that's interesting because her voice isn't changing like you would think. Talking like this for many, many days, voice would be just destroyed, but it's stuck. Cool.
Wir
So
glauben mit dem Vater der Liebe nicht. Nur was du in ihrem Auftrag nicht sagst.
Im Auftrag von der da.
Von der allerseligsten Jungfrau.
Das scheißt durch, was die doof schreiben. Sie nicht.
ooh,
Ja, das ist von ihr.
voice changed a little bit there. That was weird.
Nicht von Satan.
Ja.
Sondern von
Der.
Von der Gottesmutter.
Ah.
Von der Gottesmutter.
Nein, bitte.
Und du liebst, wir kennen dich ja.
Skip ahead a little bit.
Oder nichts auch.
Aber wenn du musst. Aber wenn die allerseligste Jungfrau dich zwingt, dann musst du es doch sagen.
Aber.
Und die Barbara Weigand hat allerhand Seelen rausgeholt aus dem Fegfeuer, ne? Die Barbara Weigand hat allerhand Seelen aus dem Fegfeuer rausgeholt. Nicht? Hörst du das gerne, ne? Aber ich weiß
Ah,
es.
der macht genug Zugsätze, du.
Warst du da mit dabei? Hast du ja auch zugesagt?
Ja. Sogar ganz schön.
Ganz schön. Ja. Ipse tibi impera.
Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. Die saublöde Weib.
So really, it's not. It doesn't feel too much like an exorcism. It's more just like a conversation. Yeah, like I was really hoping to see. I tried to go through this to pull out like some gems, but it is so long-winded. Okay, here we go. This part here, it seems he's directly trying to do some exorcism work and to see her reaction.
Reicht alle.
Im Namen Jesu, im Namen Maria befehle ich dir, die volle Wahrheit zu sagen. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Ja, es wird schlimm werden. Sehr schlimm. Schlimmer als die beiden letzten.
Wo wird es schlimm werden?
Hier. In Europa.
Wo in Europa?
In Europa.
Wo in Europa?
Die Drecksausi verflucht.
Ich befehle dir, die Wahrheit zu sagen. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen
Und der
Geistes.
Scheißdreck muss gebeten werden, sonst ist aus.
Der Rosenkranz.
Ja, sonst ist fertig.
Was hast du noch zu sagen, der Bischof von Würzburg?
Oh, die Drecksau, die verfluchte.
Ich befehle dir im Namen Jesu.
Oh,
und
glauben
im
Sie das
Namen
ja doch
Mariens.
nicht.
Er wird alles glauben.
Haha,
Befehle dir,
betreibe ich ihn schon, dass er das nicht glaubt.
ich befehle dir im Namen Jesu und im Namen Mariens.
All right, I'm bringing this stuff back. There we go.
Des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Ich fahr bald aus.
Wann? Der Bischof von Würzburg will es auch wissen.
Ah, der
Im
braucht
Namen
nicht so
des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Es gibt noch mehr. Und jetzt hatte wie die Rotznase. Noch mehr?
Zum Beispiel, wo sind sie?
Okay, so this is wild. I don't see how a girl kept this up for a month and didn't lose her voice after day 2, right? Geez, it's intense, constantly growling. It's just absolutely wild. It it's from purely a bystander point of view, I don't see how this could be done by a normal human. Mental illness aside, it's really hard to keep growling like this. So, I'm like everybody else, I sing along to music in the car. I listen to a lot of metal. It's my jam. It's what I do. I've been to a few metal shows, going to one show and screaming along with the metal singers from one show, lost my voice for 3 days. I mean, this girl constantly growling, yelling. Like the vocal range goes up and down a bunch. I did hear some pitch changes. I would like to have heard. I wonder if I can find just like a clip of her. Like changing over to like Hitler or Lucifer. Okay, I found something from. I found something on Reddit, of course, Reddit for the win, right? There are some pictures here. They're a little graphic. We're gonna listen to this whole thing. This is only 1 minute and 47 seconds long. But I've got this full screen, and we're gonna check out these subtitles so you can see what's going on. Let me kill my camera again. Let's go ahead and check this out.
Der Rosenkranzmonat, weißt du ja, ne?
Ja,
Rosenkranz.
aber die wenigsten beten.
Die wenigste.
Ja. Und in der Kirche wird auch mal der wenigste Gebet, weil die Herrn Pfarrer ja das für unmodern halten.
Ja,
Ja,
alle.
fast. Die sind ja so blöd, wenn sie eine Ahnung hätten. Ah,
Definitely sounds a little more aggressive.
warum?
Ja, warum?
Ah, weil Weil er eine... Nein, nicht so.
Secret Edibles.
Weil er eine starke... Haltmaul!
Hmm.
Ja,
Weil er eine starke Waffe ist. Gegen Satan
ja,
und alle Dämonen.
ja, gegen uns. Ich muss dir sagen.
Der Rosenkreuz ist eine gewaltige Macht gegen
Ja,
Satan und alle Dämonen.
aber das glauben nicht viele. Ich halte es hier nur volles Weibezeug. Zum Glück.
Wer ist da schuld daran?
Ja,
Ihr.
ja.
All right. Yeah. So let me bring the camera back up. So yeah, that one was definitely a little more aggressive than the others. Yeah, it's absolutely wild that she kept that up for a month and kept her voice. I had a hard time actually finding like specific audio clips. Like, here's the part where she says she's Hitler. Here's the part where she says she's Lucifer. There's, what did we say, 67 recordings, and each one can be up to 4 hours long. So I can see how this could be, an issue when it comes down to, finding that one little audio clip. But we're going to take a quick little break right here.
Damn, that's a lot of audio.
Yes, it is, especially for the 70s, all on cassette tapes. I think the beginning of the sessions were done on reel-to-reel audio, so we have like a nice little chunk of like a 4-hour audio clip. But after that, the first session, I know he switched to cassette tapes. There's the physical tapes are in the Vatican archives. It's absolutely wild. But I take a quick little break. I get to run the restroom right quick, and we'll come back and we'll finish through the story about the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. So hold on, folks. Here we go. Okay, friends, I've returned. Okay, so we listened to some audio from the exorcism, the actual audio. Uh, I guess I can put these pictures up here now that you've seen some of what happened. You've heard some of what. These are actual photos from her exorcism. There was some belief because of the movie that she was like tied to a bed in a basement under a church, all sorts of stuff. But no, this exorcism happened inside their house. So yeah, like these are actual exorcism photos. I don't see. The good news is these pictures do show that it feels like these pictures are a little more like ethereal, like they're gritty. Uh, they got her like mid growl taking a picture, which is cool. But she doesn't seem as small as I thought she was going to be. But it's really strange that she is like her eyes are sunk in so hard. It's just a little weird to me. But hey, it's I don't know how these things usually go. So. By November 1975, 2 months into the exorcism, Anneliese's physical health was rapidly declining. She began refusing to eat entirely, claiming the demons inside her prevented it. Her body was racked with convulsions, and her injuries from self-harm and thrashing were becoming infected. She was reduced to less than 100 pounds, often dressed in rags, sleeping on the floor. So these must be early photographs because they don't look like rags to me. Photographs from this period show a figure barely recognizable as human, skeletal, bruised, and with sunken eyes with bloodied lips. Yet the priests persisted. Father Renz, in his later testimony, said, "You could not stop. The more we prayed, the more voices appeared. We believed we were fighting for her soul." The sessions grew increasingly violent. Anneliese would shout obscenities, laugh uncontrollably, spit at the priest, and scream in ancient languages. She began tearing rosaries apart with her teeth, chewing on table legs, and once reported lifting a man twice her size off the ground with her surprising strength. But amid all this, there were moments of lucidity. Throughout the ordeal, Anneliese continued to express devotion to her faith. She asked for communion. She prayed, even in pain. In some recorded... Excuse me. In some recorded sessions, her voice, no longer growling but frail and human, can be heard saying, quote, "Mother, I'm afraid. Please stop them. I don't want to go to hell. It's better if I suffer now so others won't have to." These statements hint at a deeper internal struggle. Whether it's part of a dissociative break or something spiritual, these moments suggest that she believed her suffering had a purpose, that she was enduring torment on behalf of others. Her diary entries from this time reflect a combination of religious fervor and deep psychological distress. In one entry from early 1976, she wrote, quote, "I want to suffer for the youth of this world and for the priests. I want to suffer so that souls don't go to hell." End quote. It's hard to listen to these words and not feel the tragedy of it all. Regardless of belief in possession, this was a young woman in pain, either gripped by psychosis or trapped in something far worse. Anneliese's parents, Joseph and Anna, remained fiercely supportive of the exorcisms. They truly believed that she was possessed. Her mother later testified, quote, "If you had seen what we saw, you would understand. This was not our daughter. This was something else." End quote. The family did not seek emergency medical help, even as Anneliese's weight dropped dangerously low. Instead, they focused on continuing the exorcisms, believing that stopping now would doom her soul forever. The doctors, for their part, had largely given up. Anneliese had stopped seeing her neurologist in 1975, and no further treatment was pursued. The family and the priest were now fully committed to the spiritual diagnosis. But by June of 1976, Anneliese was emaciated, bedridden, and barely able to speak. Her knees were broken from a constant genuflection, over 600 in a single session by some estimates. She was covered in bruises, sores, and open wounds. What is genuflections? That's a word I don't know. Genuflection is a gesture of reverence most commonly seen in religious context, where one kneels on one knee as a sign of respect or worship. Okay. But she still prayed. The final recorded exorcism took place on June 30th, 1976. During that session, Anneliese spoke her final coherent words. Quote, "Mother, stay with me. I'm afraid. I beg for absolution. Please forgive me." The next morning, on July 1st of 1976, Anneliese Michel was found dead in her bed. The official autopsy listed her cause of death as malnutrition and dehydration. At the time of her death, she weighed 68 pounds. She had suffered from pneumonia, multiple injuries, and chronic exhaustion. The medical examiner concluded that she had been taken to a hospital as late as 1 week prior. She would likely have survived, but no help was ever sought. Her parents and the two priests who performed the exorcism were soon charged with negligent homicide. So, unfortunately, what we dealt with, or what they dealt with, did lead to her death. I find it hard to believe that psychosis alone could cause somebody to completely stop eating. At some point, you're going to get hungry, right? I mean, even crazy people eat. But, death is death, and negligence aside, somebody needs to be held responsible because this girl had some issues, and we're going to get to that now.
I mean, people go on hunger strike even when not in psychosis.
Right, but a hunger strike, you have a reason for doing it. I don't see, just looking at the pictures. Sure, these pictures are intense. However, they don't look like caring photos. I mean, Jesus, the first two pictures looks like the mother's got the girl in a damn headlock. Look at this picture. She's got this hand over here at the left, grabbing the girl by her hair. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this yet. At least with a hunger strike, you're doing it for a reason. I don't see the reason for her starving herself unless it was outside of her control. But let's get into it. When Anneliese died on July 1st of 1976, the news initially traveled through only local whispers. But the moment authorities learned of her condition at the time of her death, emaciated, injured, and dehydrated, and untreated medically for months, a formal investigation began. What followed was the most high-profile criminal case in post-war Germany. The trial of her parents, Joseph and Anneliese Michel, and the two priests who performed the exorcism. The police, acting on the report from a local physician who examined the body, were alarmed by what they found. Anneliese had suffered from malnutrition, weighed only 68 pounds, and bore clear signs of long-term neglect and repeated physical trauma. Her knees were shattered from prolonged genuflections. Her body bore bruises, lacerations, and open sores. Her lips were broken and crusted with dry blood, and several teeth were missing. It was immediately clear that she received no medical treatment in the final months of her life, not even hydration. The family, in collaboration with the church, had instead devoted all efforts to spiritual warfare. They believed Anneliese was possessed, and the law saw something different: negligence resulting in death. The district court charged all four individuals with negligent homicide. Germany in the 1970s was still a deeply Catholic country in many rural regions in Bavaria, but the nation was also becoming more secular, modernized, and skeptical of supernatural claims. The case polarized the public. Newspapers and television segments quickly picked up on the story. A young woman allegedly possessed by demons, subjected to dozens of exorcisms, and left to starve to death under the supervision of clergy. Some called it faith-based tragedy, others a modern witch trial. To many Germans, the story felt medieval, more appropriate for the 1600s than the 1970s. Subsequently, the trial began in March of 1978, almost 2 years after Anneliese's death. The case was argued before a panel of 3 judges and 2 lay jurors at the local district court. The prosecution argued that all 4 defendants bore responsibility for Anneliese's death. They continued that proper medical intervention could have saved her life and that religious delusion had overruled common sense and legal duty. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, supporters, skeptics, and Catholic faithful all squeezed in to hear the proceedings. It was not just a criminal trial, it was a public reckoning between science and religion, between modernity and ancient belief. Prosecutors presented a clear and chilling case. Anneliese had stopped eating for months, and no effort had been made to hospitalize her. Her body showed signs of extreme physical deterioration, including muscle wasting, bone fractures, and untreated wounds. There were numerous medications prescribed to Anneliese over the years, none of which were consistently administered after the exorcisms began. Medical experts testified that the temporal lobe epilepsy and schizophrenic psychosis explained her symptoms, including hallucinations, religious fixations, and dissociative behavior. The priest, according to the prosecution, reinforced her delusions and discouraged medical treatment. One expert neurologist stated that this was not possession, that, quote, this was a textbook case of misdiagnosed mental illness, left untreated and made worse by the rejection of science. Now, the defense, on the other hand, argued that the Michel family and the priest acted in good faith. They had tried everything: medication, therapy, and hospitalization, but nothing had worked. They believed, based on Anneliese's own words and behaviors, that she was possessed. Her parents testified tearfully. Joseph Michel told the court, quote, "We love our daughter. We did everything we could. She wanted the exorcisms. She begged for them. We didn't want her to die, but we believed we were saving her soul." End quote. Anna Michel, visibly shaken, told the court that she had personally witnessed her daughter speak in tongues, growl in unnatural voices, and display impossible strength. Father Alt took the stand and defended his actions passionately. Quote, "She needed help no doctor could give. I saw her suffering, I saw the demons, and I would do it again." End quote. Father Renz echoed these sentiments and stated that he followed church procedure and had received official sanction to perform the exorcism. Perhaps the most disturbing moment of the trial came when the court heard the audio recordings made during the exorcisms. In the hushed courtroom, Anneliese's screams echoed over speakers. Guttural, broken, primal. The voices were shocking. Even seasoned court officials.
https://www.twitch.tv/topazintoxin. You
Wow.
can still perform an exorcism and keep her fed and hydrated, surely.
Absolutely. I'm with you. Just a second. I need to ban somebody. I'm sorry, but we don't spam. It's not what we do. Goodbye. Thanks for spamming my channel. I appreciate it. All one people watching appreciates your spam. You're great. But yes, I completely agree with you, Lip. You can perform an exorcism and still, who's to say you can't perform an exorcism on somebody sedated? Why don't we talk about that? Sedate the person, perform the exorcism, and while they're sedated, or sedate them and give them an IV, hydrate them, put, essential nutrients into their body. I'm with you, Lip. I think this is what we're dealing with when it comes to when it comes to this case in court. We've got one side of the coin is devout religious. They were officially sanctioned, so by all rights they were entirely legally able to do what they need to do. However, it does start to feel a little bit like negligence because, yeah, perform your exorcist, but take care of the damn girl. I mean, starving the girl, or not letting her eat. I mean, I'm saying not letting her eat, but she said herself that she couldn't eat. The demons wouldn't let her. Sedate her, pump what you need in her veins, and then wait for her to wake up and do it again. Easy peasy. I'm sorry. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. So perhaps one of the most disturbing moments of the trial came when the court heard the audio recordings. The voices were shocking. Even seasoned court officials were visibly disturbed. On one tape, she can be heard shouting, quote, "We are damned. We are damned forever. She belongs to us." In another, she says, quote, "My soul is burning. I am Judas. I betrayed him." The defense claimed that these tapes proved the presence of multiple demonic identities. The prosecution argued that the recordings were evidence of psychological collapse, not supernatural invasion. Psychiatrists testified that Anneliese showed clear signs of dissociative identity disorder, psychosis, and religious delusion, all likely linked to her temporal lobe epilepsy. One expert told the court, quote, "She wasn't evil. She was mentally ill. She needed medical care, not rituals from the Dark Ages," end quote. However, a neurologist called by the defense countered that not all of Anneliese's symptoms could be attributed to epilepsy alone. He conceded that, however, the starvation had been the cause of death, not the neglect by the family. I disagree. So after weeks of testimony, the court reached its verdict in April of 1978. All four defendants were found guilty of negligent homicide, but the court acknowledged that their actions were motivated by severe belief, not malice. So that being said, the sentence was Father Alt and Father Renz were sentenced to 6 months in prison and suspended sentence for 3 years. Joseph and Anneliese Michel were also given a suspended sentence and fined. No jail time was ultimately served. The judges concluded, quote, "The defendants were not criminals in the usual sense, but they failed their duty to protect the life of the girl they loved," end quote. That is the one sentence I've heard that has made the most sense since we started this podcast tonight. Kudos on you. The case left Germany divided. To some, it was a warning about the dangers of religious extremism and the rejection of science. To others, it was evidence of the reality of possession and the high cost of spiritual warfare. The Catholic Church, publicly embarrassed by the trial, quietly tightened its rules around exorcism afterward. Though it never officially condemned the actions of the priests, it distanced itself from the case, and in the following decades, exorcisms would become more and more rare and more secretive in Germany. Anneliese Michel was buried in the outer section of Klingenberg Cemetery, a place once reserved for suicides and outsiders. Her grave became a place of pilgrimage for believers who thought she was a martyr. Some claimed she bore the stigmata, wounds resembling those of Christ on the cross. Others reported miracles at her grave. The death of Anneliese Michel was not just a tragedy. It became a turning point in the global conversation about possession, mental health, and religious belief. In the decades since her passing, her story has transformed from a court case into a kind of myth, a symbol for a modern clash between faith and science. Whether seen as a martyr or a victim of medical neglect or a test case of spiritual warfare, the legacy of Anneliese Michel lives on. Her name continues to provoke strong reactions among theologians, psychiatrists, filmmakers, and paranormal investigators alike. So, what did the Catholic Church do? Though not directly on trial in 1978, the Catholic Church found itself in the center of a public firestorm. The authorization of a full Roman rite of exorcism in the 20th century European nation raised serious questions about its place in the modern world. At the time, official church doctrine still recognized the existence of demonic possession, but it was extremely rare for an exorcism to be authorized, especially in countries with strong medieval or medical and psychiatric institutions. Anneliese's case embarrassed the German Catholic hierarchy, many of whom had opposed exorcism from the start. But following the trial, the church undertook several internal reviews where it did not condemn the fathers, alt or rens. It quietly issued new restrictions as a result of what happened. In Germany, in particular, it implemented stricter protocols, essentially eliminating public or recorded exorcisms from church life for years afterwards. Yet, beneath the institutional caution, many clergy and believers defended the exorcists. Some believed and viewed Anneliese as a victim of diabolic persecution, a modern Job figure, who willingly endured suffering for the salvation of others. Even decades later, some priests continue to cite her case as an authentic evidence of true demonic possession. So, is she a martyr, or is this just a cautionary tale? It's the nitty-gritty of what we're here to talk about tonight. Almost immediately after the trial, a small group of Catholics and paranormal believers began to reframe Anneliese as a martyr. This wasn't just sympathy, it was spiritual admiration. Pilgrims began visiting her grave, leaving flowers, crosses, and rosaries. Some claimed to have heard whispers or felt chills while they were there praying, but others left notes thanking her for her sacrifice. And in 1999, over 2 decades after her death, her parents petitioned for Anneliese's body to be exhumed. The grave was opened in secret under church supervision. Officially, this was to verify whether the coffin had been damaged by moisture, but unofficially, the family hoped that her body might be found incorrupt, untouched by decay, as is claimed by saints. The intention was to see if she was going to be sainted. When her body was inspected, no supernatural signs were reported. She had decomposed normally, no stigmata, no divine preservation. Still, the faithful remained convinced, and for many, the very nature of her suffering was proof enough. In the decades following her death, Anneliese Michel's case became a subject of serious academic study in the fields of psychology, neurology, and religious studies. She is frequently cited in discussions of dissociative identity disorder, religious psychosis and hyperreligiosity, temporal lobe epilepsy, and spiritual hallucinations, and the effect of cultural belief on mental health. The four big ones. And these are also four of the big major staples when it comes to psychosis, things they look at when determining today whether or not somebody is truly possessed. One important development came from research into culture-bound syndromes, illnesses that manifest differently depending on a patient's cultural environment. In deeply religious settings, mental illness may present as possession, with symptoms tailored to the individual's spiritual expectations, which is really exactly what we were looking at here. One psychiatrist wrote, quote, Anneliese did not fake possession. She believed it fully, and belief, especially when reinforced by authority figures, is a powerful thing. It shapes a person's reality. End quote. This concept of of belief acting as kind of psychic feedback loop is central to modern psychiatric reinterpretations of demonic possession. When a person believes they are possessed, and that belief is validated by family and clergy, their condition can escalate from just a passing fad into extreme severity. Some clinicians now refer to this as exorcism-induced psychosis. Perhaps no area was more visibly impacted by Anneliese Michel's story than film and television. Her case directly inspired the 2005 horror film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Written and directed by Scott Dickerson, the film fictionalizes Anneliese's story as that of Emily Rose. Blending horror with courtroom drama, it portrayed the exorcism and subsequent trial, dramatizing the spiritual and legal tension. Though set in the U.S., the narrative closely mirrors the real events. A devout young woman begins suffering from seizures and hallucinations. A priest performs exorcisms with family consent. The girl dies. The priest is charged with negligent homicide. What set Emily Rose apart was its refusal to take a definitive stance. It presents both rational and supernatural explanations side by side, allowing viewers to decide what really happened. The film was a commercial success and helped reignite global interest in the exorcism stories. Other works clearly influenced by Anneliese's case was Requiem in 2006. A German film presents a more grounded psychological portrayal of her final months. Anneliese, The Exorcist Tapes in 2011, a found footage style horror film directly using her name, and numerous paranormal documentaries and YouTube series that analyze the tapes. Hey, that's me. The most enduring visual impact, however, remains the audio recordings of her exorcism. These real-life sounds used in dozens of documentaries and podcasts remain some of the most haunting audio documents in paranormal lore. But within paranormal investigative world, Anneliese Michel's story holds a place of almost sacred weight. To many investigators, it's the gold standard of modern possession, a case with medical history, priestly documentation, and audiovisual evidence. Investigators and demonologists still cite her case when trying to validate new possession cases, understand demonic identity through vocal patterns, and identify false claims or attention-seeking behavior. Her tapes are studied for linguistic anomalies, changes in pitch and vocal range, and psychological tells. While some believe the recordings are definitive proof of demonic influence, others see them as evidence of a deeply disturbed mind in crisis, one that mimicked and internalized the language of possession due to years of religious conditioning. Still, many believe her case shows true possession gone wrong, a failure not of belief, but of balance. The family and priests had conviction. What they lacked, some argue, was discernment. So today, the grave of Anneliese Michel remains a pilgrimage site, especially among Catholic traditionalists, and it's visited by thousands of people over the years. Some leaving offerings, and some ask for intercession, and some as one might a saint. So there are a group of people that feel that she should be sainted because she did suffer. We come back to the martyr side of this conversation. She's become a cautionary tale for therapists, a case study for theologians, a martyr to believers, and a horror icon for filmmakers, and still a mystery unsolved for many of us who investigate the unknown. In the end, we're left with a series of hard questions and even harder truths. What really happened to Anneliese Michel? But we do know that what happened to her was real. Her pain was real. Her screams were real. Her death was real. But the cause, whether medical, spiritual, or something stranger, remains bitterly debated. The primary secular interpretation of Anneliese Michel's case is that she was a tragic victim of untreated and misunderstood mental illness, compounded by the deeply religious culture that she was raised in. This view, supported by the prosecution during the 1978 trial and later by neurologists and psychiatrists, centers on three primary diagnoses. 1, temporal lobe epilepsy. 2, schizophreniform disorder and psychosis. And 3, dissociative identity disorder. Anneliese had been on powerful medications, including Tegretol and I don't know how to pronounce this word. A medication that starts with the letter A, ends in T. For years, and the exorcisms intensified. She reportedly stopped taking them. Withdrawals from these drugs can cause seizures, mood swings, and delusional episodes. In short, the medical case, excuse me. Need a little beverage here. In short, the medical case is that Anneliese Michel died because of her mental illness was misinterpreted as a spiritual affliction and treated as such. But then there's the other side. To the devout. Oh no, do I have the hiccups now? No hiccups, not on a podcast. Yes, there's hiccups. Jeez. I'm down to like my last 2 pages. Oh my gosh. Anneliese Michel's symptoms were not medical. This is according to the devout. They were supernatural. They point to genuine demonic possession, a rare but real phenomenon in which outside entities take hold of a human body. Proponents of this view point to several key figures of her case. They argue that they cannot be explained by neurology or psychology. Multiple witnesses, including her family, the priests and neighbors, reported episodes where Anneliese displayed unnatural strength, contorting her body, resisting multiple men, and performing over 600 genuflections in a single day. even with broken knees. Excuse me. Gosh. These hiccups, golly. Oh my gosh, they're getting worse. She allegedly spoke fluent Latin, a language she had never studied, and on occasion uttered phrases in Hebrew and Aramaic. Doctors later argued that these could have been mimicked, but believers note she used contextually accurate phrases during the rites. I am sorry about the hiccups. Jeez. This happens from time to time. Golly. She also had aversion to sacred objects. Anneliese had violent reactions to holy water, crucifixes, and prayer, classical markers of possession in Catholic doctrine. She often writhed, screamed, or collapsed when blessed items were brought near her. Another thing is multiple demonic entities. She claimed to house not just one demon, but many, each with distinct personalities, histories, and even goals. These voices identified themselves as Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Adolf Hitler, Nero, and Fleischmann, the disgraced priest from the 16th century. Perhaps the strongest piece of evidence for believers is the 67 audio tapes recorded during her exorcisms. The voices are terrifying, deep, animalistic, and at times guttural, at others mocking and articulate. For those who've listened, they remain some of the most chilling sounds ever committed to tape. Skeptics argue they are simply a young woman in deep psychological pain. But for those who believe, they are the voice of the enemy. Golly, I'm sorry for the hiccups, yo. Some researchers, theologians, and paranormal investigators often a third theory, a kind of psychosis spiritual feedback loop, where Anneliese's mental illness, spiritual beliefs fed into each other in a closed system. In this view, Anneliese may have started with the genuine psychiatric issue, TLE, depression, hallucinations, but due to her religious upbringing and environment, interpreted them as possession. Her family and priest reinforced that view. Over time, her behavior shifted to match her internal expectations of what possessed person should look like. This loop intensified. The more she believed, the more she manifested. The more they prayed, the more she suffered. In this theory, belief itself became the engine of her destruction. As one investigator put it, quote, "If demons didn't enter her body, the idea of demons did. And once it did, it became just as lethal," end quote. This explanation does not deny the paranormal. It simply suggests that belief is power, for good or evil. Interestingly, the Catholic Church has never officially ruled on whether Anneliese Michel was truly possessed. While her exorcism was sanctioned and her priest never excommunicated, the Vatican has remained silent on whether her case was authentic or not. In later years, however, the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith would tighten its guidelines for exorcism, requiring strict psychiatric evaluation and greater secrecy in all rituals. In a 1999 Vatican conference, a cardinal speaking off the record said, quote, "The Anneliese Michel case reminds us that spiritual discernment without scientific grounding can be dangerous. We must always ask, who are we really fighting?" End quote. So what's the truth? If you believe in demonic possession, Anneliese Michel stands as one of the clearest, most disturbing modern cases on record. She displayed the classical signs. She reacted to spiritual stimuli. Her voice changed. She named demons, and she suffered terribly. But if you stand on the side of science, the picture is just as tragic. A young woman with identifiable medical conditions. Excuse me, I am so sorry. Treated with superstition instead of medicine until her body gave out. And in between those poles lies something harder to name. A story of belief turned deadly, of institutions clashing, of one woman's quiet descent into torment while the world stood divided over what it all meant. I'm going to peel away for just a second so I can try to get rid of these hiccups. Give me a second, please. Okay. I was not able to get rid of my hiccups like I thought I could. Sometimes I just need to clear my throat a handful of times in a row. But they're still here. So, we are down to our last little bit here. Anneliese Michel's story isn't easy. It's not comfortable, and it shouldn't be. It reminds us that belief, whether in demons or in a diagnosis, has consequences. That families can love and still be wrong. That faith can heal, but also harm. That sometimes the lines between the natural and the supernatural blur in ways that no courtroom can fully resolve. She was not a villain, not a fool, and not a fraud. She was a daughter, a student, a believer, a human being who suffered deeply, perhaps more than most of us will ever understand. And now, nearly 50 years later, her voice still echoes in tape, in film, in faith, and in fear. And in hiccups. So whatever you believe about Anneliese Michel, her story demands to be remembered. So, let's break it down. looking at the study in a whole, I believe that perhaps this was not a girl possessed, but a girl with mental health issues. Now, if I remember correctly, I do believe that there was testimony by one of the psychiatrists that said the medication she was given before she quit taking medication was counter-reacting each other and making her condition worse. And I feel like this is more of a case of mental illness than it is a case of demonic possession. However, on the flip side of that coin, I don't see a 20-something-year-old girl weighing less than 100 pounds not being able to be held down by 3 men. The supernatural strength is a little weird. I don't know how to explain that. But I would need to see video. I would need to see video of them not being able to hold her down, right? Ironically, this is one of the things not in the recordings of her not being able to be held down by 3 grown men. If it were me and I was the priest doing the exorcism, I would be recording everything. Absolutely everything. And I would, because, I mean, at this point, it's an insurance thing, right? You want to be able to protect yourself. And if you see that there might be some form of mental illness there, but you're still going to continue to go forward with the exorcism route, I would use the tapes recording every single second I was involved with this girl as a way of protecting myself. However, we don't have audio of the priest interacting with her when they're not performing the exorcism. So I have a hard time believing that there was things like 3 grown men being thrown off of her. You know, it's really hard to justify that. And I think in this specific circumstance, we're not dealing with demonic possession. We're dealing with mental illness and probably more the family I feel like her health declining was a result of her family. Not so much the quote unquote demonic possession. Because you got to think a very pious Catholic is going to fast. So I believe the family probably pushed her to be more pious in her moments of clarity, and that would include fasting and any other time after that, it was just the psychosis talking to her. I really have a hard time believing this is anything but mental illness. Especially after looking at these pictures, because they're not easy to look at. You know, I've had them up here to my right this whole time, and it doesn't look to me like a girl that's possessed. It looks like a girl that is neglected. And unfortunately, in the 60s and 70s, in a very pious part of Germany, all you had was your religion, and I think that's what contributed to this. Excuse me. Wow, that was a good one. That's what contributed to this compound. I think this was just the perfect storm of mental illness, extreme religious piety, and a girl not on medication like she needed. Yeah, I don't think this is paranormal at all. I could see like psychosis contributing to the voices, but the one thing I can't explain is when she was when she was saying that she was possessed by the demon of Father Fleischman. I can't put together how she was able to put that one together. I don't know. It's that's about the only thing I can't explain in my head. But I don't genuinely think that this is paranormal. This is definitely mental illness, misdiagnosed. And unfortunately, it was something like this that causes a paradigm shift in the Catholic Church. And in a way, she is a martyr. Sure. She lost her life, but in moments of clarity, she was still true to who she was religiously. And unfortunately, she lost her life for it. And in my eyes, I would say yes, she is a martyr, but I would not say that she was possessed. And I wish Paul were here, because Paul is an ordained minister in the Catholic Church, and he would have some phenomenal things to say about this. And I feel like he would probably be on the same side of this conversation as I would. That he would believe that it was some form of mental illness, unfortunately. And it breaks my heart to know that this girl suffered for months before her passing. But it's, if this is what it took to cause a paradigm shift in the Catholic Church, then she didn't die for nothing, right? So I think sure, she's a martyr. She died for what she believed in, and she felt like she was doing what she needed to do for the right reasons. But I feel like this could have ended differently. there are a great number of cases that have to deal with demonic possession and exorcism, and a lot of people after this came out of the other side unscathed. And unfortunately, this girl was she was the straw that broke the camel's back. So, unfortunately, here we are, a loss of life and misdiagnosis is what I think this is, unfortunately. So, there you have it. Yeah, it's really sad. Like, it really is sad, and I'm sorry that this girl suffered as long as she did. But I say again, she didn't die for nothing. She brought about change, and I've always said that even if I die at an early age, even if I impact only one person, and doing the right thing and change one person's life for the better, then it wasn't a causeless death. My life had meant something, and I feel like Anneliese Michel, her life did mean something. It wasn't just a case for a paranormal podcast like this, but I'm rambling. Anywhoots. There's my official opinion on the matter. I don't think this is paranormal. This was a girl with mental illness, and it just wasn't treated correctly, unfortunately. But, we grow from this, and we're better after, and that's what counts. So, yeah, we're gonna say this isn't paranormal, unfortunately. But hey, what a great episode! It was. There was a lot of really great information here, and geez, there was so much involved. I did skip over a little bit because of these hiccups. I can't believe they're still here. But I did skip over a little bit of the towards the last little bit there to spare you my hiccups. That's why so many pauses.
I would have to agree. Definitely an interesting case, though.
Right? Yeah, it's something that should be, in my opinion, studied by both theologians, scientists, and paranormal investigators alike, because you're not just dealing with a case of something spooky and paranormal, you're dealing with something a normal person went through. And, I say again, she didn't die for nothing. She brought about this massive paradigm shift in the Catholic Church. And, maybe this was, I don't know what your religious belief is, Lip, but excuse me, maybe this was our Creator's way of bringing about the change that needed to be done. I am not Catholic, I am not Christian, but I do believe in some ultimate creator. I've got a very convoluted idea of creationism. I follow egg theory. And it's it's a loss of life, sure, but it wasn't a wasted loss of life. And this is something we can take in and process, and we can change and become better from it. I get really passionate about people being done wrong. That there are not just, I don't want to use the word done wrong, but unjustly labeled, let's say that I don't know. I'm a fighter for the underdog. I always have been, and I always will be. And if this case were to happen today, I don't think it would have ended the way that it did. I think, just like you said earlier, sure, you can do possession, or you can do exorcism, but we would find a way to put the nutrients and hydration in her veins that she needed. This girl would have made it out if this happened today. And it makes me sad because there was, she was probably a really good person. And she was just...
In a lot of ways you want them to be as strong as possible to help fight it.
Right. I completely agree. But it makes me sad. It really does. I get overly emotional about shit like this because I've had a handful of really shitty things happen to me, and it affects my perception of things like this happening to somebody that, it's outside their control. But man, it just really sucks because, probably a really good person lost their life just from medical neglect. And, we could harp on the subject till I'm blue in the face, but, this has been happening since the beginning of time. The Holocaust, look at that. That's, that happened. How many good people lost their lives because of one man? I don't want to put this in the same vein as the Holocaust, but it makes me sad. I'm overly empathetic about things like this, is all. But this is why we retell these stories, because it's a cautionary tale for future generations, so they can learn. So what's the adage that you don't know where you're going until you know where you've been? And, unfortunately, there was a loss of life, and, grow from it, learn from it. Let's not make the same mistakes again. I believe, mental illness is a big issue, and not everyone is as unfortunate as me. I was able to get off of my medication for my bipolar disorder. I just happen to find things that work for me. I've got a good brain that I was able to constructively look at it and work my way out of the other end. Not everybody's so lucky, and unfortunately, this is one of those cases where the other person is not so lucky. But we as a human, we're going to learn from this. So I'm going to say, for those of you listening, if you know somebody that has to deal with, that's struggling with mental illness, be it depression, bipolar disorder, dissociative identity disorder, whatever, psychosis, doesn't matter. Give that person patience and time. Patience and time. That's all I ask. Don't pump them full of medication. Get them what they need, but they're a person. Let them continue to be a person. Don't lock them in a room and starve them. Help them. This is probably the part where I would want something floating on the screen about, a hotline for helping people with mental disorders, but I don't have that information right in front of me. However, it unfortunately, that was in the past. We've grown, we've learned, we've become better humans since then. So do the right thing, folks. If you see somebody needs help, get them help. Religion aside, get them help. They'll get it figured out. So, enough rambling from me. I could go for another hour. I'm a little emotional this evening. So, I enjoyed tonight's foray into the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Anneliese Michel, the real Emily Rose. If you haven't seen the Exorcism of Emily Rose, go and watch it, and then do the research yourself. Come up with your own conclusions about what really happened. And again, if you're struggling with mental illness, get the help you need. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Even if the help is outside of your family, do what you need to do. If you know somebody that needs help, get them the help that they need. I think this was a great show. It was a nice social commentary that that has to do with mental illness and controlling families, family dynamics. This is a great episode about hiccups and still trying to record a podcast. Choke me, please. Ugh. This I haven't had hiccups like this in months. They're still here. I couldn't tell you why they came on, but whatever. It's hiccups. Kudos on me for being a podcaster with the hiccups. I'm trying. I'm sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear my hiccups every time I hiccup. But I'm trying my best to lean away from the mic every time I feel one coming. Usually, these are gone by now. This is ridiculous. Golly, hiccups, the most unnecessary thing.
Sometimes too.
Hard to be a podcaster and have the hiccups. But thanks for sticking with me, Lip. Hopefully these won't last until next week. They'll probably hang out until I fall asleep tonight. Oh, gosh. But, so I did go through the YouTube channel, and I'm starting to organize the episodes into subject matter. So we do have playlists made for not just ghosts, but UFOs, paranormal happenings. I think I added 2 or 3 new playlists to the YouTube channel. And I did realize that we have a very big shortfall of ghost stories and everything of the sort. So I think for the next couple weeks we're going to do ghost stories. We have like 6 or 7 episodes that have to do with ghosts and poltergeist and possession. So I think next week we're going to do another ghost story. Maybe something a little more whimsical, a little lighthearted after this week's episode. I'll dig around and see what we can find. Lip, do you have a suggestion? Do you want to hear something specific? I'm painfully curious to hear what you want to say, or hear what you want to talk about. Let's see. Listeners at home, if you want to email us an idea for an episode, reach out at beyondshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Let us know your personal ghost stories, your personal paranormal stories, what have you. We'll talk about them on the podcast. It doesn't matter if we think they're real or not, unlike some podcasts. We will we'll cover. So what's the date today? Today's the 22nd. Let's do ghosts for the rest of the month. And then we'll pick up on a regularly rotating schedule. I can't think of any good ghost stories off the top of my head, but we will continue to do what we can to make this podcast extra excellent
Nothing comes to mind, but I'll think on it.
Alrighty, if you feel like you've got something worth talking about, shoot me an email at beyondshadowspodcast@gmail.com. And we will see what we can put together. Or rather, I will see what I can put together. So, that being said, if you find yourself struggling, mental illness, or you feel like you're being possessed, don't go to those priests. Don't go to those doctors. Come on over to us and let's talk about it. Because they don't always have your best interest in mind. However, if you follow us, we will help you figure it out. Because the world is full of spooky, terrible things. But just make sure you follow us. Beyond the Shadows. I'm not as good as these outro speeches. Just Lip. Wait till Aeon comes back. He's good at these outro conversations. You're gonna like Aeon. He's a good guy. So we're gonna get out of here. I'll see y'all next week. We're gonna talk about some ghosts or something silly. Have a good week, everybody. Be nice to everybody. If you see a ghost, turn and run. Do the right thing. Y'all have a good night. I'll see everybody next week. Have a good week, everyone. Good night.
A creature like that, how would it ever die?
And this monster starts running right at me.
Annihilated by nuclear bombs.
Beast is not dead. I put 4 bullets into him.
Why, you're crazy.
But I saw that monster too. All I want is for someone to believe me.
Contaminated.
Face. It's horrible. Look like it would scare you to death.
All right, let's get to work.
Beyond the Shadows.